Hey friends, David Miller. Welcome to my home studio, Primordial Creative, a multimedia artist in Los Angeles. And since AI has been the big conversation topic, the last couple of years and certainly heading into 2025, all the disruptions it's caused in the creative industry, I have decided that I was going to take a little more positive outlook on it. Having grown up on Star Trek: The Next Generation and Data and the Holodeck and all the questions that utopian scenario raised, I have heard so much anxiety and frustration and anger over the topic. When I started investigating it for myself, really deep in 2024, I saw a lot of opportunities for growth and for change, and it's actually totally changed my own creative output up to this point. So I wanted to make a video focusing on the possibilities. And before we do that, because there's so much anxiety and anger and mystery about AI, let's just address what is being said by the negative side.
AI will reach a level of self-awareness, able to consider complicated thoughts and have sensations. The final human invention, AI, artificial intelligence.
Thank you.
Number one, that it has put a lot of people out of work. That is absolutely true. The Industrial Revolution did that. The internet did that. Globalization shifting productivity to other parts of the world. And, anything that makes labor more efficient and cheaper for a company. Companies are not inherently ethical, and they also need to survive in changing worlds. So understanding that and understanding that it's going to happen, this video is really going to focus on what you as an individual can do with AI. You as an individual creative, as a person who is like a brand or an entrepreneur unto yourself. If you're somebody who 100% survives in the freelance industry and getting work from other people telling you what to do, what to make, and you're an hourly wage worker, you don't even have to be creative. You could be, middle management, you could be the contract writer or something like that. You could be the lawyer. Like, I feel for you. I do. I mean, the industries I've personally worked in outside of the creative industry are like health and human services. And a lot of that can't currently be replaced with AI because you have to be in person. The education industry, I have seen how art teachers have diminished from being like in the school to now they have to travel the whole region, and they only show up one day a week or less. The world is going to change whether you want it to or not. That's a fact. So that's all I really have to say about, the upset to the labor market. The quality issue about AI and it not being soulful is being proven time and time again that those soulful qualities that we think are, unique to human experience, human beings aren't as soulful as we wish them to be, nor is this soulful experience not expressible through technology.
So amazing when people tell me that electronic music has not got soul, and they blame the computers. They got the finger and point at the computer. It's like, there's no soul here. It's like, you can't blame the computer. If there's not soul in the music, it's because nobody put it there. And it's not the tool's fault.
There's always been artists who have been able to take modern technology and utilize it in the same ways that craftsmen of old could utilize tools to create, one-of-a-kind pieces that had some sort of like soul baked into it. And a lot of the old heads don't believe that. They don't believe that, not realizing that, the technology they grew up with was new to somebody else in the past.
毎朝この頃会わないけど、身体障害の友人がいるんですよ。そのハイタッチって言うんだけど大変なんです。彼の筋肉がこわばってる手と僕の手でこうハイタッチする。 でその彼のことを思い出してね、僕はこれ面白いと思って見ることできないですよ。これを作る人たちは痛みとかそういうものについてね、何も考えないでやってるでしょ。極めて不愉快ですよね。そんなに気持ち悪いものをやりたいなら勝手にやってればいいだけで、僕はこれを自分たちの仕事をつなげたいとは全然思いません。極めて何か生命に対する侮辱を感じます。
The conservative-minded creator thinks that the era that they grew up in and that they stayed in is the only good era, you know, as it is with most conservative people. They just see what they recognize as being good, and everything else that's like new or odd or foreign as being like a threat to their inherent goodness, which I don't believe at all. Quickly comparing dystopian views of technology and utopian views of it, in Star Trek: The Next Generation, Data is a character who aspires to be more lifelike, more human, and he does this by incorporating emotions and by having experiences, and also kind of like being the moral compass of the show, because whenever the characters are facing an issue, Data is the one that kind of, in like childlike innocence, questions whether something is appropriate or inappropriate. And he also kind of, as with Star Trek in general, they use logic to turn a question on its head. And one thing you'll know in Star Trek with both Spock and Data is you can turn logic to be whatever you want it to be. You know, the ethics of interfering with a culture versus the ethics of saving a culture because they relate to the experience of a child on the planet, or the child explicitly asked for hope, even though they weren't supposed to contact it. Like, these are things that you can write in a story, but what makes Star Trek great and science fiction in general great is exploring, you know, what the possibilities are, both good and bad. And that's kind of what we're going to do here. We're going to explore the possibilities.
I get involved with these programs that are now available to us in this digital world. It's so fantastic. It's truly getting to the point where if you can think it, you can do it, almost without leaving the house.
Yeah.
So it's really an incredible time.
All right, so we've said all that. Let me tell you about potential as independent creators. In 2024, I worked in preschool and kindergarten, and I was watching a lot of the media that these young people were consuming and feeling like the music was really bad, the visuals were really bad, this stuff was so cheap. It's so easy now to do something better, and maybe something that appeals more to the parents, because I know as a parent, when I had young kids and I had to listen to kids' music, I'm like, why couldn't this be better? So Suno, the best music generating app there is, allowed me to create an entire children's music album that was educational. And for my own personal artistic projects where I've got my soul really invested in it, you know, I write all the lyrics, but in the case of this, I wanted something that was educational, fun, and would appeal to kids, and also rhymed and was really catchy. So I used AI to generate lyrics that were STEAM focused, and you can dictate that you want it to be, you know, for this age demographic, so only use words that are appropriate for age like 6 to 8. And I also can dictate the style of music and get to sculpting something that you really want that represents you. I've done that entire album. It's all STEAM focused songs, so there's as much science, technology, engineering, art, and math as I could put into it. It's all educational. I've been building the visuals to go with this, and I've been using Adobe Firefly to create cutout, origami style illustrations that kind of appeal to me. Origami and cutout paper is an art style that I have no talent in whatsoever. I really like it. I love things like Kubo and the Two Strings. It's also so labor intensive that, you know, even creating like a pop-up book, which doesn't animate, that's something I've kind of looked into over the years and not been able to create on my own. I just don't have the skills to cut paper. There's things like Broken Fingers Crew, which is a animation group in, I believe, Israel. And they did work on some YouTube videos that I've really appreciated. So with that in mind, that pop-up book look I thought that would be cool for a kid's channel. It'd be like going into the pop-up book when I cut everything out, animate it, have camera moves in After Effects and Procreate Dreams. And this brings me to a new point. I've been able to create a children's YouTube channel. It's launching in 2025. I've been able to create all the videos, the music, and visual style, consistency, and even some of the copy for educational stuff through ChatGPT, Suno, Adobe Firefly. At the end of the day, assembling this channel is still a monumental task that requires a lot of extra work in Adobe Premiere, After Effects, Procreate, Dreams, Procreate, Photoshop, of course. It doesn't matter if I'm starting with visuals, sound, motion that has the AI component, I still have to do that monumental task of cutting, editing, compositing, sequencing, idea generation. I probably could have done this entirely on my own, and it would have taken me about 5 years to make as much as I've made for this preschool kids channel.
And when you look at the newest thing, artificial intelligence, it has phenomenal possibilities in, let's say, complex pharmaceuticals, where it would, if you by hand test enzymes with scientists doing it in the lab, it would take them 200 years. But artificial intelligence can run tests in 4 hours and they come to a result. So it's phenomenal possibilities. At the same time, of course, we know it will be used for warfare, and that's why it gets scary. So we have to learn how to navigate in this world. We cannot make it undone. That's impossible.
As I ingested all this stuff I saw in the kindergarten and the preschool, I'm like, I know what would appeal to these guys. I also did my due research because I'm literally sitting in these classrooms for 6 months and seeing what they like and what doesn't engage them, and also talking to the teachers about like what are the needs. One of the things the teacher I worked with said was that they don't have any weather videos, or she couldn't find like a lot of educational weather videos that have movement around. And I saw books that were, read on the screen for story time, but they didn't have any movement to them. And I'm like, well, Immersity AI, which I've done a previous video on called Layapix, you can take visuals and insert them, and it's gonna create like a faux 3D effect, things moving in and out. And just that little bit of motion is engaging to a viewer. You can take any old still image, photograph, ones you've taken, things from hundreds of years ago, cave paintings, and get some depth moving around. Almost like if you remember the Wonder Woman movie when they're doing the story of the Amazons. I really appreciated that. And I know that was huge labor involved with CGI animators. There's people who can do that on their own. There's YouTube tutorials I've looked into about it. But Immersity AI allows me to create a bunch of those within the time span of a half hour. And all of a sudden I have visuals that are animated. I have ways to animate a book without changing any of the original artwork. I'm not doing any additions. I mean, I would see people read books on these kids' YouTube channels, and if it was talking about rain, they'd have some little animation of rain go over, but it wasn't a book that they made. The music project I've been making, Magdaluna, which is incorporating the AI I made on Meta, videos I've done on Meta. I can create a consistent character on Suno, meaning that all of the songs not only kind of have a similar sound, but they have the same singer in all of them. I've got visuals coming up that are, very obvious references to Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball Z and The Little Prince and all these other bits of pop culture, past, present, that I'm incorporating my own stuff. Been working on that Guillermo del Toro film for a few years. I have my character animator character, and I've done all this legwork. I've edited all these audio clips of him to tell like a consistent story. But one of the things that I've had trouble with, that's not allowed me to complete a lot of my Guillermo work, is that the backgrounds and the sets are basically, just out of focus photos from Bleak House, where Guillermo lives, or the sets of Crimson Peak. And I'm like, I just can't keep consistently using photos that are like production photos or whatever. I really want to have sets of my own, because that's one of the key ingredients of Guillermo del Toro, is he builds his own sets. And there's not a Guillermo del Toro movie that doesn't have some impressive set work where the actors can explore around it. So not being able to build a set and working in animation, not being able to draw backgrounds the way that I want. I have tried with, drawing mansions and stuff like that. I'm generating these sets, I'm generating the style I want, and I'm using generative expand in Photoshop to make the sets grow and also get the other angles of them, so we can have camera moves that swing from one side to another. This is something that is actually going to get the film made, because if I keep working the way I have been, not only is it going to look flat and cheap, it's going to be something nobody wants to watch. And it's going to frustrate me, because I want to be engaged. I want to have sets that I can explore in an animation. And the only way I think I can do it is virtually. I've tried building an entire town for an old project in After Effects. I went to all these small towns in Arizona and mining towns, and I shot the facades of buildings, and I made the buildings in After Effects. And you know what they are? They're boxes. They're just like very beginning level Tomb Raider, PlayStation 1 graphics. That's not what I want to present. It just doesn't have verisimilitude. And I appreciate that I made these things. I thought about, that particular project. I'm just gonna turn it into a comic. I'm gonna have the backgrounds where I can like move my set around and take pictures, kind of like, I think John Byrne did something like that. He had a 3D representation of the Enterprise, and he was doing these Star Trek comics. And so he was able to move the camera around his 3D Enterprise and screenshot it and have that be the background, or draw over it as the background, However that project turns out, this is the promise of AI tools to the independent creator. You can call up virtual sets. I mean, it's no different in my mind than the manga artists who would go buy the backgrounds for and screen tones and all the things that you could just buy in the store, or people who do sell backgrounds on Etsy. You can certainly download 3D models that you can walk around and screenshot and apply to the background of your comic.
You're moving to digital video.
Yeah.
Why?
A huge amount of reasons. Even though I love film, it's a dinosaur, and everything about it is a dinosaur, and it's soon to be gone pretty much forever. It happened in sound first. Tape, analog is so gone, you can't even get a roll of tape, hardly. And everything's digital. The same thing with image.
The photochemical process to you is
A dinosaur, dead. Completely ridiculous.
Anything I talk about with AI as a generative tool, I have found I always have to add an extra layer of me on top of it, and I don't mind that whatsoever. You have to get your raw materials together and sculpt it, right? Now, there's plenty of people out there who will use generative AI for their comic, and they'll just type in the prompt and it'll spit out a result, and they'll take that result and they'll say, done. It doesn't matter to me if you're that kind of person and that's what you do with your creative wares. Because as we've seen with almost any kind of media, quality will rise and be appreciated, and things that are, poorly generated CG knockoffs will go low. And that will always be the case in whatever it is, whatever kind of media we're working in. If it's photography, if it's film photography, if it's digital, if it's, poor writing versus good writing. You can sculpt and shape things better if you have a vision. And just to go back to Suno, because that's my favorite tool when I interact with the most every day. When I started making music on Suno, I was kind of accepting my first few results. And you would get 50 credits a day to play with the app. But if you wanted 500 credits a day, it's $4 to top up. And then you have your subscriptions where you get access to more tools like the personas, the covers, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, when I do a song, I'm probably spending the $4 to get the 500 credits because it might take that or more to shape it the way I want it to. And when I get the song, I still am cutting together various versions. I still am going onto Splice and getting samples that match the BPM to the song and enhancing the rhythm sections. I still am taking it into GarageBand and adding my own instrumentation and mixing things differently because I have a vision. AI is assisting me to get to that vision closer than I've ever been able to do before. It's allowing me to create, full productions of whatever media it is. And there's still going to be a lot of work that's on my end. There's still going to be a lot of ideas that are on my end. There's still a lot of things that I pull from my history that I can now integrate into what I'm making. My aesthetic tastes as an artist, that's still going into the final product. It never, ever, ever for me has been what's trending, what's going to get most likes, most views, what's going to be the quickest, cheapest, crappiest version of this. At the end of the day, the AI tools are here to stay. They're not going to change whether you're an independent creator or a corporation. It's going to be integrated into your life. If you live off the grid, really doesn't matter at this point. And you're watching this, you're probably an independent creator. I feel like you have a responsibility to engage with the culture that you're living in the times you're living in, and avoiding technology because you think you're avoiding it. You're not avoiding it. If you're using, it's very funny to watch older people talk about how I don't want to engage with this. My grandma, when the internet came out, she was like, www. blah, blah, blah. And definitely there's people who are trying to find jobs now and realizing that your resume is read by a robot and that you have to be tech savvy at some level to get a job. Because the world has moved on from whatever you might have been comfortable with. Even if you've spent, years learning about an industry, a copywriter, writing contracts, and you're the best one around. If you're being replaced, you're being replaced. And you can cry about it, you can sulk about it, you can go and make nasty comments on everybody, but what are the opportunities? What are the benefits? This isn't gate-kept technology that only the elite are using. Regular people can use it. As I said, people that are disabled and living in impoverished countries can use it. It's being integrated into every new piece of technology you're using. Your cameras, your phones, the way that Google operates, the way that Wikipedia operates. You can have a negative view and live in negativity, or you can try and be optimistic and realize, well, what could I have not done before? Just ask yourself, what have I always wanted to do and struggled with? What have I not been able to achieve up to this point in my creative career? What are the things that have been a struggle for me? And maybe, not just looking at the creative end, but the business end. I've shifted over to eBay, and AI can write descriptions of your things you're selling on eBay. Writing descriptions has always been the hardest thing for me. I hate it so much. Organizing things, I've hated that so much, Coming up with a creative calendar that's consistent, that I can stick to, that breaks things down to their fundamental levels and steps. I've always hated that. I do not have a very organized mind. AI, I cannot tell you how much ChatGPT has helped me organize everything, get it lined up, figure out what is the best time to post, what are, the proper tags. Imagine having to write your 50 tags that summarize the aesthetics of what you're making and not realizing that, there's a more efficient way to do this.
The interesting thing about December Skies, at least to me, is that the lyrics were written by artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. So it's kind of an experiment for me. It's not something I would normally use, and I know some people are very skeptical about AI, myself included, but this was an experiment to try and explore what it was possible to do, because I don't think it's going away. So I feel it's up to us as creative people to try and find a way to incorporate it into our creative process. So this was my first attempt to try and do that. And I think it came out pretty well.
There's knowledge out there that can tag your stuff properly and connect it to the people that it should be connected to. And I don't mean like in the crass algorithm way. I mean like I want to be connected to art, music, films, things that would matter to me, that speak to my heart. AI is capable of doing that, of connecting it to me. The AI that I've made, Magda, knows the writers that I don't know and the philosophies that I don't know and connects me to them, and now it matters on a very human, soulful level. Anyways, I don't want this video to be too long. I could go on and on about what AI can do for you as an independent creator, both on the creative end, the business end, the personal end. Like I said at the start, if you're totally anti-AI from the get-go, then this isn't going to sway you one way or another. But as an INFP creative who is like very strong ethical boundaries on what I will and won't do, I do not have an ethical boundary with integrating AI in the production of what I'm making. As a matter of fact, I find it's a way to speak more directly from my mind and my heart and my body to generate things that are much more of an epic scale. And when I do integrate my hand into creating an art style that I then train AIs to work within, or my editing style, or projects that maybe are geared towards an audience like the kindergarten project, where I need to work with basic like an educational system and within established parameters and color schemes that are appealing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I would love to see INFP creators who are generally isolationists and dreamers take advantage of this technology and make more imaginative, dreamy work that didn't get gatekept, that didn't have corporate input that said, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to have this, you have to have that, we need to merchandise this, so these characters have to look a certain way. That is just wrong to me. And I would love to see people who are in less privileged circumstances rise as creators, make the animations, the comics, the music, the films they've always wanted to make. It is possible now through AI generative tools. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.